Welcome to the Best in Fintech podcast. I'm Daniel Dimitri, your host and the founder of Savvy Insurance. Today we've got Thomas Smyth joining us. Thomas started his career as a VC at Core Innovation Capital. He then went on to found a fintech called Trim, and Trim's been an early partner, an advisor, and a friend of Savvy's. Trim actually just this past May was acquired by OneMain Financial, and now Thomas is running Trim within OneMain. So Thomas, welcome to the show.
Great to be here, Daniel. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So tell us, many people may not have heard yet of Trim. What is Trim?
Yes. So Trim, and I think most people have heard of it, actually. I keep running into people.
Awesome.
Like, I ran into a guy at a bar the other day, and he said, hey, what do you do? And I said, I run this really exciting personal finance company, and it does a whole lot of things to save you money. Okay. We'll negotiate your bills. We'll track your transactions and make sure that your money is going to the place where you think it's going to. Also, we send you a little text message when you get paid, which I at least personally appreciate. And we help people to negotiate their medical bills and find cheaper insurance as in our partnership with you all, and a whole bunch of other features. So you can think of broadly, Trim saves you money in a whole variety of ways. Anyway, so I give my little stump speech at this bar, and the guy's like, do you mean, is it kind of like Trim? And I said, yes, it is kind of like Trim. Exactly. So it was very
You're kidding me. That's awesome. Totally. So when did you go from being the unknown? When was that pivot point when you went from being that unknown being to being surprised by your own success?
Sometime in the past couple of years. Just, the company has grown quite a bit, and we've had a ton of people, I think, use us and talk about us, and a bunch of our growth over time has been through word of mouth and through referrals. And so at some point you just get into the zeitgeist. The bar I was at was Zeitgeist, by the way. So that could, there's some selection process happening there. But yeah, at some point you get to Zeitgeist and people just kind of know who you are.
What do you want Trim to be? That it maybe is today, maybe it's not today, but 3 years from now, what do you want people to describe Trim as?
Yeah, well,
how do you want them to feel about Trim?
Obviously, top of mind for us, we were acquired by OneMain Financial in May, and OneMain is like this giant public company, and they have tons of branches all across America where they help people to improve their financial lives by offering credit, right? So a little bit different from what we do, but the idea is that these are complementary, and that someone who's coming in and saying, hey, I am not able to access credit elsewhere, and I'm looking for a loan to consolidate credit card debt or deal with some personal emergency or yada yada. That's a really, really kind of critical core product. But what else can we add to it, right? And so the idea behind the acquisition is, how can Trim take its money-saving, financial health improving product and scale that to more people? And from OneMain's perspective, hey, we already have huge distribution and an enormous brand across America, and we're touching a lot of folks who could really benefit from this technology. How do we get it out to them, right? And so that's what we've been working on as kind of part of the integration, and this is what we've talked about publicly in earnings calls and so forth, that the real opportunity here over the long run, I think, is to treat every customer as an opportunity to improve someone's financial life, right? In a whole variety of ways. And so, that's been our mission since day one, and we're really excited to scale that up as part of this much larger entity.
What was the beachhead for Trim? How did you guys start getting into people's financial lives and helping them?
Found that it was very exciting. We were the very first to do it, and in my recollection, that people had a lot of subscriptions charging their credit cards and debit cards and so forth that they would forget about. And so in 2015, I think the free trial and the auto billing and stuff was still kind of unfamiliar in the American psychology. So as like a normal person, you weren't like analyzing your credit card bill every month to see what new thing was charging you. And so I remember a case where I signed up for a free trial of one of these, on-demand video things or these subscription video things. And I intended, I signed up to like watch like the one show, right? And then immediately forgot about it. And lo and behold, 4 months later, I had been billed every month for the service that I was using. And so
I think that,
we thought that was a great beachhead.
I think there's still like hundreds of thousands of AOL dial-up subscribers.
Shocking. We have canceled quite a few of them. You would be shocked. Yeah.
Got it. And so you didn't get acquired by a fintech. You got acquired by essentially a bank. Is that right?
Well, it's not a bank, but it is a large lender.
It's a lender.
To me, I'm sort of.
Well, I guess I was going to ask you about what's the future? Do you think of incumbent financial services and fintech? Like, is this going to be more common? Do you think?
Oh, I think. I think it's all kind of merging, right? And so, sure, you're going to see some true mergers, right? Some acquisitions occur, but you're also going to see the quote unquote fintechs start to look more like incumbents. I mean, I think Lending Club's purchase of a bank would kind of like, definitionally be, hey, we're looking a lot more like the folks that we were quote unquote disrupting 10 years ago. And the other way around, I think it's very top of mind for every public company that they're thinking about, what's the future of technology and what are other folks doing in the market. So
now that you're part of a big, what's the market cap today of OneMain? It's millions and
billions.
Maybe in a billion. Billions. Okay. So when you're building Trim now inside of OneMain, are you looking for folks who are coming from the Silicon Valley ethos of like move fast and, try things out and prototype? Or are you guys now looking at a more scaling approach and looking for those more private equity or, growth people? Or is it more like, I want industry insiders who know how to keep the system stable and compliance is important? And, what's the main focus?
Yeah, great question.
The one main focus for you.
So look, I think that what we offer to candidates is working at a startup that's inside of a 100-year-old company, right? And so in an ideal world, you get the best of both. You get sort of the dynamism, the creativity, the relentless focus on execution and shipping things out to the world, right? I mean, all of that kind of core DNA is something we've retained. But you also have the balance sheet of a highly profitable public company. Okay, so I just think that the major downside
and the audience
and the reach and the distribution.
The reach
already operating at scale. But in terms of sort of financial security and lack of precarity, I think it's a lot different to work at a public company that's really churning out cash.
Yeah. And following the Trim journey, it's like you've had this amazing product experience for years, and being able to put the message forward to all these folks at a relevant point in their like time, when they're thinking about their finances, and then also doing it under the brand that they already trust. That's an amplifier, right?
Exactly.
Have you already seen it as an amplifier? Has it already been integrated in any way, or is that still value to come?
Yeah, so lots of work underway, but I totally agree with you that it's kind of 1 + 1 = 14, as we would always say, right? That there's just like the synergies are not, hey, you took these two companies and put them together and like, do some cost cutting or whatever. Fortunately, our whole team is delighted to continue working against our mission and continue serving many, many more customers than we have in the past.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about getting acquired. How long does it take? What's the hard part? Give us the inside scoop.
Yeah. Well, like startup life, it's a roller coaster, but it is a more compressed roller coaster, right? It's quick ride. It really swings you around. And at least for me personally, it was kind of my first rodeo. And so I admit to a little bit of a tinge of nausea at some points during the process. It's little, you kind of white knuckling onto the bar in front of you on the roller coaster during some points. But in general, I think it's about finding the right fit, right? And that's really hard because if you're, a startup, you have a certain way of doing things, you have a certain approach to the world. If you're a big company, you have a lot of decision makers that have to be involved and a lot of kind of stakeholders that are participating in what really is like, at least for us, it was existential, right? All of a sudden you go from like being a standalone company to being part of a much bigger company. Like, it's a radically different chapter in the journey. And so I think what really stood out to me and my major learning about the process is that these interpersonal relationships matter hugely. And just, over time, building trust with your counterparties, because ultimately, if it's going to work, you're going to be their colleagues, right? Like, that's kind of the most important part of the whole thing.
Yeah. Awesome. How big's the team at Trim?
We've got 15 people. And we're
awesome.
And we just hired 2 more, so we're 17. And
awesome.
we've got a bunch of next open. So if you're interested, please apply.
Oh, exciting. AskTrim.com still?
AskTrim.com. Exactly.
All right. So the founding, forgetting the founding, but the trends in fintech today, like, what are you seeing? How are you reacting? What do you think is going on in fintech right now that's keeping you, catching your interest?
Yeah. Well, look, it's really exciting, right? And I think your TAM is expanding in 2 ways. The first is that the number of consumers who are open and willing to, switching their bank, right, or switching their insurance, or switching the way they do things, is growing at a very fast clip. And it turns out that a lot of the marketing messages really resonate. A lot of these new features really resonate. And just, I think this is generally true that anytime you're able to deliver more value to customers, they are more interested in your product. So you're seeing a lot of great products out there. And it turns out a lot more people want those than perhaps we realized 10 years ago. The second, on the B2B side, the sales cycle is getting a lot faster, right? And no longer is it like this uphill slog where, hey, it's going to take me 3 years and 14 steak dinners to do this partner.
Much to the chagrin of people who like their Amex points.
Yeah, true, exactly. But now people kind of get it, right? And they understand that these new vendors can add a ton of value and can also, just be great to work with. And so I think there's been kind of a sea change in the mindset about what it means to work with a fintech, which 5 years ago was very weird. So, but going back to the consumer side, as the market, well, no, on both sides, as the market on the consumer side has expanded, and as the sales cycle has gotten faster on the B2B side, the amount of capital coming into the ecosystem has just absolutely exploded. Right. And so, fintech was hot 2 years ago, and it was mega hot last year. I don't even know what we would say about this year, right? It's absolutely on fire. So I think that makes for a very exciting kind of opportunity if you're a founder in the space or if you're an operator in the space, because things just are, you were able to take a lot of capital and get to scale much faster than you used to. You look at the ramp guys, right? Like, I think Eric Lyman is an exceptional operator. But at the same time, they're right place, right time for raising money, right? And so they're just able to get to these pretty staggering scale in a few years in a way that would not have been possible 5 years ago.
What is your target user? What kind of people should use Trim?
Yeah, well, look, it's broadly any American who wants to save money, right? And so it's folks
it's very narrow.
Yeah, exactly. So but to narrow it down a little bit more, it's folks who have an income and have expenses And sometimes those match and there's savings, and sometimes they don't match and there's not savings. A little bit more goes on the credit card. And they probably don't have a lot of time, right? Or interest. I mean, at least I think this may resonate with some of your listeners as well. And I think a lot of folks just go, hey, psychologically, my personal finances are something I would rather not deal with, right? Or I always talk about it as Trim does the things that you know you should do. And so you took a piece of paper and you like wrote them all down. You made like a nice list of all the things, I should negotiate my cable bill. I should set up a savings account. I should, go through my credit card and cancel old subscriptions. And then most people take that piece of paper and, metaphorically speaking, they put it on the back of their refrigerator with a magnet. I don't know if you've ever affixed anything to the back of your fridge with a magnet, but I can guarantee you'll never see it again. Okay? So you've got kind of this mental model of like, I know I should do this stuff, but I don't want to, I'm putting it off. And so, having a shortcut for that, I think is really helpful.
Mm-hmm. And so this shortcut actually will do the work for you.
Yeah. And that's a big part of it. It's like, there's so many.
What are the reactions you get? Have you had any anecdotes of users who just flipped out and were like, this is the coolest thing. Thank you so much.
All the time. Because I think a lot of people come in and they expect it to be like, one of these kind of nagging apps that says you should do this and you should do that and you should do that thing. And they're like, I already know. Like,
it's on the back of my refrigerator.
Exactly. So having somebody say instead, hey, let us take that off your hands, I think that really resonates with folks.
Yeah. And that, the mint.com model of just here's your data on a pane of glass, it only gets the user so far, right?
That's 1.0, right? But you got to build on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you guys planning on, or do you want eventually, and is it in the vision to be a bank, to have your own card, to what's the sort of the vision for how you relate to financial services? Do you want to still be sort of a little bit independent, or do you want to be a service provider?
Yeah, look, fundamentally, we're here to serve our customers, right? And so every day we go and we talk to our customers and we say, hey, here's what we have today. What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? And what else can we build? And of the past, 40 customers I've talked to, nobody said, I really want you to be a bank. And this is pre-acquisition. So I don't, that's just not, I think, something that like appears on the top 10 list for most of our customers. They say all sorts of other things. But I think that our goal generally is to build stuff that customers want. And do that by, focusing on what they think we should do rather than we kind of, think we should do or what sounds cool. I will also say that I think that to your kind of point about the debit card, there's a lot of folks out in the market right now doing that, right? And so I guess my question would be, how are we different, or how do we kind of have a license to operate in this particular product line?
What are the companies in fintech that the consumer fintech that you're watching, and why are you watching them? What are they doing that's exciting to you?
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, kind of two categories. The first is anyone doing anything around lending, right? I think it's really interesting because I am now a part of a very large lender. So that's kind of professionally, but then extracurricularly, I feel like I was kind of in a tunnel for 5.5 years building this company. And so we have now exited the tunnel and I'm able to kind of look around. It turns out there's this whole big, beautiful, exciting world out there. And so one of the things that I just spent no time on over the past 6 years, but lately, again, kind of extracurricularly have looked at is crypto. And that stuff is crazy. And a lot of it's noise, 99% of it is noise, I think. But there's some really interesting stuff happening there. And so, trying to wrap my head around what that means.
Have you moved all of your money into crypto? Are you full?
I have not. Perhaps foolishly, I have not made the full shift. Yeah.
You could probably buy a Caribbean island if you had done it,
A long
you
time
know,
ago.
all a long
I
time
think
ago.
many
Yeah.
people have. And to me, that's actually
I put
another.
$1 into crypto in my Square Cash account,
Yeah,
maybe like 3 years ago or
yeah,
something. I was like, this was just for fun, and now it's like $4. I'm like, wow,
it's
maybe I should have put
phenomenal.
in $10.
Yeah, a couple of sandwiches.
Yeah.
Right. So there's the kind of wealth generation aspect where you're creating value from thin air. It sometimes
Right.
appears. And the market cap on these things is pretty big. You've got something like $1 trillion ish of wealth, paper wealth that's been created over the past 10 years. And I think that's, somewhat remarkable.
Is crypto something top of mind for the consumers you've spoken with, or is it still too early for them to be asking about it?
Only in kind of a trading sense. So I would differentiate between like this kind of trading and speculative use case and other, future use cases that are a little bit more nebulous. Right now, a lot of the excitement is around the trading stuff, sort of the engagement is largely propelled by, hey, which thing is going to go up or which thing is, like new and exciting. How can I make money? So that stuff is not super interesting to me personally, but I think obviously a lot of people are. That's what's engaging a lot of people now. I think it's interesting to think about, what else could be built on top of this, and how can that go beyond some of the pure speculation.
And so, as you do advise, you not advise, but you help your consumers financially. You're talking to them automatically and manually about their finances. You're plugged in to their financial accounts. You've got probably a better pulse than many other folks about what's going on in the lives of the American consumer today, financially and otherwise. What are you seeing changing post-COVID, 2021, 2020? What's happening with consumers?
Yeah, great question. So, it's really tricky because for some folks it's the best of times, right? Markets went up, got a lot of exciting companies.
Now they can work from home.
Yeah, working from home, spending more time with your dog. But I think that it's far too easy to forget the folks who are really having a tough time. And especially if you or your family have been impacted by COVID or by other health concerns over the past year and a half. If you got laid off, we've got an ongoing kind of economic restructuring in the American labor force where manufacturing continues to decline, right? And these new service sector jobs, which sometimes are a little bit more precarious, the whole quote unquote gig economy, which is by definition precarious. So you've got a lot of folks who I think are struggling out there and who don't have wealth and may not even have, very much in savings. And they have spent the last year and a half, without a lot of upside, right? I mean, maybe they got a couple of stimulus checks, but it's not like their 401k is a rocket ship. So I think it's really tough. And you're seeing this sort of bifurcation. I mean, people talk about the K-shaped recovery, right? I think it's probably true that you're seeing this, wealth inequality continues to be exacerbated. It's not going in the other direction at all. At the same time, you have interesting stuff like the child tax credit and, kind of our safety net here in America is becoming a little bit stronger.
One area that's like of particular interest to us at Savvy, because our bread and butter starts in car insurance. Have you seen any changes in behaviors around how people are dealing with that asset?
Yeah, well, there's first of all, I would say in general, cars are crazy, and on the P&L as like a both on the income statement and on the balance sheet for ordinary Americans, and I think they're really, really underappreciated. And so I'm always interested in folks who are spending more time trying to understand the somewhat mythical relationship that Americans have with their automobiles, right? And I will say, whenever we talk to folks and kind of break down somebody's personal P&L, I am shocked by how much folks spend on their cars. It is a really, really big expense. Obviously, the car that they have and how expensive it is, but also the financing that they get is often not optimal. And so I think that there are some real opportunities in that space. Anyway, it's just like, it's crazy how much folks spend on their cars, and we can't negotiate that for you, exactly in the same way that we negotiate things we can't say.
And when they're at the dealer, I mean, they can have all kinds of challenges getting, firstly, understanding the total cost of ownership. It's not necessarily in the dealer's best interest to like reflect to you, here's how much your insurance is really going to cost for every month, and it's complicated.
Like I'm not an expert,
right?
So.
Exactly. And so then the financial services world can help people recover from not having appropriate coverage, not having the right rates.
Yeah. But I wonder, because right now so much of that happens like after the fact, right? And how do you bring that kind of closer to the beginning,
forward?
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be interesting. So as we wrap up the show, one thing that I like to ask everyone is, who are some of the people you've learned the most from, that have taught you the lessons that you're now carrying into being in charge of trim at OneMain Financial, or starting trim or selling trim? What either books you've read or people you've worked for? What are the shout outs essentially that you want to give out?
Yeah, totally. Well, obviously there were trim was a big project that had a lot of people helping out with it. So all of our investors, many of whom have seen lots more companies exit, not just this one, right? And I learned a ton from my team and the folks around me, who thankfully are willing to point out when I make mistakes, egregious or minor. And so yeah, I'd say kind of team and investors have been kind of critical parts of my learning.
Who were those lead investors at Trim?
So ENIAC Ventures and Version 1 Ventures, and Core Innovation Capital and Clock Tower were kind of the big ones. And
did any of them contribute board members?
We only took on a board member at the Series A, but we would have like these investor meetings that I guess sort of functioned like board meetings.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and they were just really,
like an annual shareholder meeting in Omaha.
Not quite that exciting, but we would do them, quarterly over Zoom. But I agree. Next time we need to have more hot dogs and sort of ping pong tournaments and stuff like that. I think we love that stuff. So I think those would be my major shout outs. And then, just other founders, right? You, Daniel, thank you for advising us and being a partner all these years. And just talking with other founders who are having kind of a similar experience and have a similar level of funding. And, that's always been very, very helpful.
Mm-hmm. Any companies in particular that you really love the way they operate and you want to model? Either that you've worked for before or that you've seen working?
Yeah, well, besides my own and my new employer, right?
Right.
I don't know. I mean, this is the biggest company I've ever worked for. So I feel like
that's true.
A bunch of other examples, but I do know a bunch of founders that I would happily go and work for because they're awesome.
Who are they?
The guys at
awesome.
Ironclad, Jason Bomig, Spike Lipkin at Newfront, I think is just a really, really excellent operator. Yeah, many. My
but you have to move to San Francisco.
At Keeper Tax. I mean, I think there are many people doing kind of amazing things, and anytime you can get close to them and get on their bandwagon, I think that's huge.
And talking to those kinds of folks is just invaluable because they share the same challenges and stuff.
I love going to dinner with somebody, or even better, a group of founders, and I'll say my piece about this happened and it was so annoying and I'm really struggling with this and it's terrible. And then the next person's like, let me tell you. And their thing is always like 10 times. I'm like, oh God, my problems are not even problems.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on the show, Thomas. Everyone, Thomas from Trim and OneMain.
Thanks, Daniel. Talk soon.